There are a lot of infectious disease modelers who are taking all the available data, including how fast the case numbers are growing in different parts of the world, um, whether the conditions in certain places are more favorable to spread because of population densities, whether people are in the southern or northern hemisphere. Winter conditions tend to be more favorable for spread of respiratory viruses in general, and trying to make estimates. But I think to look at this in a simple way, if we just look at a graph of the number of new cases diagnosed in different parts of the world, we see some very interesting and informative patterns. So in China, very early on in January, the number of new cases was growing exponentially. In other words, every day there was a larger number of new cases than the day before. But eventually in February, those numbers started to drop. So instead of 500 cases the day before, we had 400 cases the following day, maybe 300 the following day. And so, unfortunately, there are only a couple of places in the world that are not still growing exponentially in their number of cases. And those are China, where the virus transmission has essentially been completely shut down, if we believe the data that are being provided from China. Today, they reported, I believe for the first time, no new infections at all yesterday in China. And of course, the Chinese implemented very extreme measures to shut down transmission. The other country that has been doing remarkably well is South Korea. South Korea had some very early rapid transmission in the country. They also put very effective measures in place, and the rate of new cases in South Korea is now slowing very rapidly. Unfortunately, in most other countries, including here in the US, we're still in the exponential phase where we're seeing more and more new cases every day. And if we compare where we are today with other countries around the world, unfortunately, it looks very bad. So the rise in the number of cases per day is about the same here as in other parts of Europe, like Italy and France. They got started a little bit earlier with the cases growing than we did, but if you look at our data compared with when we first reached 100 cases detected, and compare us to Italy, even to Iran, which has had a very bad outbreak as well, we're about the same place they were 10 days ago. And of course, everybody can just take a look in the news media and see what's been happening in those countries. And unfortunately, that may be what we're going to see here in the US about 10 days from now. Part of the problem in predicting what will happen in the future is we're always seeing what happened about 10 days to 2 weeks ago as far as transmission is concerned. That's because there's a lag in the incubation period between when a person is infected and when they first develop symptoms of infection. On average, that's about 5 days, but it can be up to 2 weeks. And secondly, there's been a lag, a very serious lag in the US until recently, in the time between when a symptomatic person wants to be tested and when results are available if they are tested. And that can, of course, delay things by a few more days to up to a couple weeks. So when we get reports each day of the new cases in the US, we're seeing what happened about 2 weeks ago, perhaps 10 days ago in the best case scenario. And so the number of new infections occurring today, we're not going to know for a couple more weeks. And even the newer control measures that are being recommended now by the federal government, if they're adhered to, even those measures are going to take there for about 10 days or 2 weeks before we start seeing any impacts on the number of new cases.